zone, although that's in the evening. Hi, welcome to my question and answers today. I'm Bob. Some of you know me from Muay Thai, some of you know me from meditation, some of you might even know me from motorbikes, and some of you may even know me from swords and sword play. Wherever you know me from, welcome. An afternoon of questions and answers. It's supposed to last an hour. Maybe we'll stick to the hour. Let's see where we go. Interestingly, I've already had a question from one of the guys who's probably going to come on at any moment. I'm not going to say your name, but you know who you are. Talking about Ikigai. I think we'll discuss that once we get a few more people online. Ikigai it's a Japanese concept which has changed actually from the early Okinawan and Japanese roots of Ikigai through to the modern day understanding of it. It very much has. But we'll wait until a few people are on board before we start talking about it. So I hope you're all having a good morning. And I've got a few things I'll talk about as well, obviously, today, depending on your questions. But I made a little list here where we can be talking about swords. I got a new sword, which came in the post. I think I might have mentioned it last week, maybe not. Maybe it came just after the live feed. Made by a guy called Ian up in Scotland there. He's a swordsmith of fine repute. And I ordered this sword in August last year. Completely forgot about it, and it arrived in the post last week, which was brilliant because I had a glitch there from what I can gather. And we're back again. I don't know what was happening there, as I have a perfectly sound internet connection. Anyway, I think I was actually in the process of talking about the sword, which I am, and there it is. Beautiful piece of kit for HEMA, which is, as some of you may know, historical English martial arts, or European martial arts, as some people would call it. And I also got 3 people watching. It'd be good if you could come on and put on a comment, and then we can see who's on. That'd be nice. So I mentioned Ikigai. If you guys got sidetracked a little bit from there, but I don't know whether you did or not. So hey, let's see what's going on. I think we're getting some technical issues. Okay, yeah, we've got Stuart on board, and he said, "Nice sword. Thank you very much, Stuart. I appreciate that." And yeah, don't know whether you noticed there was a glitch or anything, Stuart. I got some sort of drop out at some point in the transmission, which seems to have gone back on live again. So that's quite good. Okay, so yeah, swords. I mean, got lots of them. We can talk about swords if we want to. Talk about the seminar on Sunday. Let that shit go. Quite a lot of people seemed interested. Some people have already signed up for it. If you haven't signed up for it, it's only 20 quid, which represents pretty good value for money. Afternoon, Justin. Oh, you've got stream buffering, have you? Yeah, Justin's got problems with his stream buffering. I've actually got a direct internet connection, which fits in beautifully with everything in theory. But of course, these are technical things. Sometimes they're out of our hands, particularly when you're live streaming. The only real thing you can do to protect it from dropping out is to have an Ethernet connection directly into your laptop, which is what I've got. It's a MacBook, so it's pretty good quality. So whilst Justin sorting out his stream buffering, what I was saying was the seminar, Sunday seminar, let that shit go, started 2 o'clock. 1 or 2 people have said they're going to be late. That's fine. It's pre-recorded. There's going to be a recording of it anyway. So if you're paying for the course, you're going to get a copy anyway, a copy of the whole course. It's over 4 weeks. It's 20 quid for the whole course. So just let's make that clear. So that's like £5 a session. And it's basically you giving me your ideas about what you want out of life and how you can, cope with the day-to-day shit that goes on. Not just because of COVID, but because of lots of things. So we've got 3 people on at the moment. I am going to be talking about other things like the newsletter sign-ups. If any of you guys have not had an email from me asking you to sign up to the newsletter, then, you know, let me know. I think the 3 that are on have. I'm not so sure about Justin, actually. Maybe Justin hasn't had one. I don't know whether I've bombarded him with my newsletters. If you want one, Justin, just make sure I've got your email address. I must have. I'll make sure you're on the list for that. The other confusion that may have arisen is that it was from Inmo Bob, which is my Facebook profile. So my web guy was using my Inmo Bob tag. So some people may have gone, who is that? And that is the name I use on Facebook. Inmo Bob. Yeah. It's a Japanese name. And it's a name I was given when I did Jukai, which is a Zen Buddhist ordination thing. Okay, so let's see who we've got. Normally Kay is on board by this time. There's no sign of him as yet. Maybe he's joined us a little bit later. But one of you guys, and I think you're on board at the moment, was asking me about what did I think of Ikigai, Ikigai. It's a concept. It's an idea that exists. It's Japanese, attributed to the Okinawans anthropologically. So Okinawa is a little island south in the China Sea, south of Japan, which is now more or less governed by the Okinawans, by the Japanese. The Okinawans were under the control of the Chinese at one point, but the Japanese took the island off the Chinese, as these things happen. So, for all intents and purposes, the Okinawans consider themselves Okinawan, not Japanese or Chinese, although they're allied, obviously, to the Japanese. And it was noticed that the Okinawans tend to live quite long. They seem to have healthier, happy lives. And some people have put this down to this concept of Ikigai. Now, Ikigai is a Japanese concept of progression, if you like, self-development, I suppose you could call it now, if you were to talk in Western terms. And the original idea of Ikigai was to subordinate your own desires for the benefit of others. So the idea was in Ikigai that you live your life to help others. So you put all of your desires last and only focus on the desires of the wider community. In modern Japan, this was probably about the 1700s. Okay, don't quote me on that. That's a pretty rough guesstimate, but that's the original concept. And that concept sort of existed up until the 60s and 70s, and it was still, and I found a quote about this, and they said it was to fit the standard mold of the company and the family. So the whole concept of Ikigai changed. So it became to fit the mold of the company that you work for and your close family. So you can see how these ideas, which we think, oh yeah, it's wonderful, it has a prehistory of like 1,000 years, actually is subject to change all the time. And now Ikigai is understood by modern writers, modern authors, talk about Ikigai as being to dream of what you might have in the future. So it's about you. It's gone from the wider community back in the day to being all about the self. It's very much a self-centered sort of philosophy. So I was asked what were my views on Ikigai. And whilst on the face of it, it sounds like one of these amazing things like, you know, I don't know, like Anthony Robbins or something like that. You know, it's one of these amazing, it's going to change your life forever. It's no different to everything else that's out there. It's going to be subject to change. So it's basically a way of developing yourself and a way of, you know, personal development to get what you can out of life, which is pretty much far removed from what Ikigai was before, which was more about society, about you putting your desires to one side to help everybody else. And it's mostly about, I think the modern version focuses mostly on about finding your purpose in life, which is fine, in order to have fulfillment and happiness. Now, most of you guys probably know my views on that. These are just concepts. And we talked about this last night in the meditation group. So You know, if you're striving for happiness, you have this craving for happiness, it's another form of craving. So you're going to be disappointed because it'll only last for a certain period of time. So it's about acceptance of what's happening within certain moral structures, acceptance of what's happening so that you can get through life in a balanced way. Not striving for this perfection, which doesn't exist. Because like anything, once you've got it, it starts to lose its power, its energy or whatever. I think energy is possibly a bit of a new agey word for that. So that's my views on Ikigai. Okay, it's an old concept that has been changed beyond recognition, I guess. If the Okinawans from, I don't know, the 18th century were to see somebody talking about Ikigai the way they talk about it now, they'd be like, no, it's not about the self. It's about pushing your ideas of self to one side for the benefit of others. Like a form of socialism, really. Hope that answers the question, if you're on and you're listening. Okay. Okay. So, just I want to make it clear as well right at the outset, next week's live feed won't be on Wednesday because I've got a funeral to go to. So we're going to miss a session next week and then pick it up the following week. But just keep your eyes on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and obviously your emails. Like I say, if I haven't got your emails, then please get in touch. Okay, it's a pretty quiet one today, but I guess because the weather is so amazing out there, people will be out in the garden, which is probably where I should be. So we'll give it another 10 minutes. We'll see how many more people join us, and maybe we should start changing the timings of this for the evening, so that you know, people are less likely to be out sitting in their gardens. Okay, so if we've got any questions, guys, we've been on 10 minutes now, or 12 minutes. Let me have them. Let's hear your comments. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about something else, but I'm not sure what yet. As I say, I've got a list: swords, the Sunday seminar we've spoken about, the newsletters you've got to sign up to, and I got a new sword the other week. Right. Come on, Stuart. You usually come up with a good question. Stuart, I believe, is on the line at the moment, watching, and Stuart's got his own company, Physical and Mental Strength. So if you want to sign up for that, that would be great. Okay, so yeah, I'm training in the park right now. So this is the problem, I think, guys. I think there's going to be a lot of people out taking advantage of the warm weather, going for walks and such like. Well, I'm going up, just out of curiosity, I'm just going, after this is finished, I'm going up to the gym to, I'm going to film a couple of things in the gym. I'm not training anybody in the gym. I'm not going to get tied up into that stupid one-to-one thing, because it's not going to happen. Yeah, so I'm going to spend an hour or so in the gym filming some material on elbows and hand techniques, basically, on and off the bag. And then I'll be editing that probably tonight or tomorrow, and then putting it on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, blah, 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 and all the other medium that I'm on. And Justin keeps dropping out, and he's going to check his server at his end. Okay, so people are out. People are having problems with their streaming. And incidentally, nobody seems to have noticed this, but this channel dropped out for a second at the beginning. Some problem with YouTube said that the stream was having problems, so that might be your problem as well for you, Justin. I don't know. Okay, I'm surprised Kay Van Dam is not online. He's normally the first on. So if you're out there, maybe he's struggling to get on, or maybe he's sitting in the garden with a fine Belgian beer and some melting chocolate. Yeah. So, basket hilt swords then. Right, that's what I'll talk about. As I said, you're going to have my knowledge of swords inflicted upon you. Different types of swords, obviously, in historical English martial arts. And that's, yeah, okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, now I know why one or two people are not getting on at the moment. They're having problems getting online. There must be some general thing. Ah, it's working here. Ah, Kay's there. Ah, good. Hiya, Kay. I hope you're well, mate. I thought maybe you're sitting in the garden, mate. Yeah. So if you've got nothing else to ask, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about historical European martial arts, which I recently got into about a year ago, and I know some of you guys have also got into as well. I'm a member of the Catran Society, which is an online group of people, although they do actually have academies around the world. And the Catran Society provides training in regimental Highland broadsword, mainly Highland weapons, so staffs, cudgels, dirks. A dirk is a short-edged weapon. Well, I say short. I mean, they're pretty damn big, like. But that's an example of a dirk. That's also known as a bollock dagger because of the bollocks here. It's a fine old bit of kit, usually used in conjunction with a targe, which is a shield. So you would have the targe here, and the dirk would be sticking out of the bottom. And then the other hand, you would carry a basket-hilt sword. Okay, strictly known as a claymore. Okay, the big sword's not a claymore, that's a two-handed sword. Bit of confusion with people. Okay, yeah, this is the recent acquisition. And Kay's just come on. Oh, you had Magpie Mayhem. This is what's going on. For those that weren't on the meditation group last night, Kay came online with two young magpies that he'd rescued from his garden. They'd had a storm. Some of them had been killed, they'd been knocked out of their nest. And now he is the father to two magpies who he was feeding by hand. So he's had Magpie Mayhem, which is amusing in itself. And he's just been reading the book, The History of Historical, was it The Training and Teaching of Historical European Martial Arts? A great book by Guy Windsor. I recommended that to you, didn't I? A great book. It's not a hands-on practical book in the sense it's not going to teach you a sword, but it'll teach you about historical European martial arts. So yeah, so this is a typical basket-hilt sword, and the word basket, obviously, because this is like a basket to protect the hand. And this, although this is not sharp, this would be a true broadsword, as opposed to another type of sword, which is a back sword, which is a basket-hilt sword, but with one edge. Yeah, so that would be one edge, and obviously I have one of them, which is like this. Okay, so there's your obvious basket hilt. Ow, this is sharp. Okay, like so. So there's the blade there, and it's not double-edged, it's a single edge, so it's called a back sword. So it's basket hilt, but it's a back sword. Okay, you can see that blunt edge there on the strong. Okay, so this is another type of basket hilt sword, and obviously you have synthetic versions of these, so you can train relatively safely. And a synthetic sword is essentially a really strong plastic sword, which is like that. Okay, and this is a heavy plastic training sword. Okay, very useful. It stop you getting cut. It has the basket hilt to protect the hand, just like any other basket hilt sword. And of course, you got lots of other weapons in the European martial arts sort of theatre. Polish sabres, and again, this is just a training sword, so it's completely blunt, but you can see this has got a curve to it. This was made in Poland, and it's a really nice Polish sword. Again, used for historical English martial arts. And you've got other varieties of swords. I mean, I've got an antique English sabre, which I think quite a few of you have seen, and I've got a Matt Easton sabre, which was made by an armory in Russia. Okay, which again is a steel training sword based on an English pattern. Okay, so that's another type of training sword, and I've got more basket hilts in the corner, and as I say, I've got a Victorian era English infantry sabre. So yeah, good fun. Most people like playing around with swords anyway. Most martial artists I know will have dabbled with edged weapons at some point. Usually things like katanas, Japanese sword, which I've got one. Thai swords, the darb, which can be used as double swords or single swords, along with other weapons and other types of protection, like a Mysore, what's called a wooden elbow, a Mysore. I don't have a Mysore here, they're in the gym. And yeah, so weapons and empty hand things tend to go hand in hand, if you excuse the pun. Yeah, so how's your magpies then, Kay? I'm sure they're very well. What do you feed them on? Is it worms now? Are they eating worms? Or are you doing a mixture of things? Or are you chewing the worms up and then regurgitating them into the magpie's mouth like their mother would? Non-UK, you probably are. So, well, go on, Kay. Tell me what you're doing. Kay, for those that don't know, Kay also had a crow that he'd nurtured from being young. So he's got a bit of reputation for the birds, if you know what I mean. So he's now got 2 magpies, and he had a crow, and I believe the crow used to come and visit him after it left the nest, as it were. So it used to keep coming back. But I think Kay was telling me it found a mate, and then nicked off for a while. I don't know whether he's coming back. Eating meat, cheese, fruits. It's a constant feeding, so they're getting a really good balanced diet. It'd be interesting. Are they flying, Kay? I think is the question. Are they flying? They might very well be. Well, I know these things have got delays on them, so I've got to fill that air because it's dead air. They seem to have a strawberry addiction now. Okay. I guess birds eat all sorts of fruit, don't they? You see them foraging, berries, fruits. So we've got some wild strawberries that grow along the edge of the garden at the top, and they don't seem to last long because obviously the birds and other animals must get to them, and they're just little wild strawberries, little patch of them. I guess somebody at some point must have cultivated them in the garden because it's sort of Edwardian period house, 1932 when it was built, and from what I gather, the garden was like a wild but controlled garden. 5 feet fly. Oh, they do maximally 5 feet flies, right? So they can fly for 5 foot and then crash. Yeah, yeah. But I guess they're learning now. So because they are fairly young, although they're getting big, and they'll grow rapidly, won't they? Because magpies get to about so big. But, are they leaving a mess in your house? That's my next question. That's the obvious thing, because I can't imagine birds are easily house trained at all, if at all. I know my granny's budgie wasn't, and my dad's birds weren't either. My dad had hundreds of birds, finches, budgies, parrots, exotic birds, as from Africa and the Caribbean, Australia, obviously parakeets, cockatiels. He had cockatiels. I remember feeding them by hand on the table in the kitchen when the mother had discarded them, kicked them out. So you had to feed them by hand. Yeah, he had hundreds of them. Not a lot of action today, I'm afraid, but these things are going to happen sometimes, and I think it's down to weather. I was saying earlier on, I don't know how many of you guys were on when I said it, but I may change the timings so it's a little bit later in the evening, maybe, when more people are going to be sitting around, because obviously we're moving into summer now and the weather's getting much nicer. It's beautiful here today. It's got to be about 20 degrees out there, and maybe it's a good time to change to an evening session for the live feed, which would probably be more acceptable to most people. And as most of you are not training in gyms until we don't know when, possibly September, October, who knows. And I believe the death toll is going back up now in the UK because obviously everybody's interacting like morons do, because they think it's all over. So we've probably got a second wave coming. So if this continues, we're probably not going to be in the gym probably till October. I even heard talk of the universities. Universities talking about not Cambridge, I think it was, in Oxford, are not going to have classes till 2021, September 2021. I don't know whether anybody heard that. I know Chester University and the University of Wolverhampton are doing lots of online work. I'm only talking from the point of view of the medical profession, because that's the side I sort of work with. And I've got a tiny bit of work doing role play, simulated patient work, communication skills training next week and the week after at Wolverhampton and Chester. So I don't know. So evenings might be better. You know, when people are sort of sitting around rather than watching the crap that's on TV, listen to my crap. That makes sense. Okay, guys. So I know Stuart's out training, so he's just listening to this. And Kay's on. Justin, I'm not sure where Justin's gone. I think he dropped out earlier on. We only have a few people on today, which is a shame. But like I say, it's the weather. It's kept people in the house. And if I was a DJ, I'd probably go to an advert break and play a record now. The whole record, the old-fashioned records. I would play a top tune, but obviously I can't, because obviously that would be subject to copyright. I do, however, strangely enough, have access to music which is non-copyright, which I would use obviously for my web pages, blogs, for videos that I'm shooting for YouTube. So some of the videos you'll have noticed have got music in them, and that's music that is copyright free. Okay, and that I'm not going to play that though. It's pretty awful. Well, some of it is, some of it's all right. Some of the stuff I've chosen is pretty good. So Kay's been reading the book, The Theory and Practice of Historical Martial Arts, that I suggested. It's really good. And as Kay said in a slightly further post down the line, that anybody could read it, any martial artist can read it and get something out of it, because it really is a generic book, really to help the instructor become better at creating drills, creating mindset, and really organising a class structure. It's very good, but it also talks from the point of view of historical European martial arts, so the swords, the spears, the staffs. I believe Guy has got it up to about the end of the 18th century, so using sources from up to that point. But that's only the sword stuff, which is what his main focus is. But as Kay said quite rightly, when I read it, I thought, this is excellent. I wish I'd written my book on Muay Thai like that. That would have been the structure I would have had. Very, very, very good book. Having said that, the book on Muay Thai that I wrote was for beginners, really. Whereas I think Guy's book's for people who aspire to become instructors and teaching specifically European martial arts or historical martial arts. I don't know where the book is, actually. It's probably downstairs, or is it on a pile down here? Who knows? It is is it there? No, that's not it. That's Stephen Pinker. Yeah. Kez just come on and said the parts about speed, posture and breathing are also good. Oh, and the thing about scythe fighting. Yeah, scythe fighting. Nothing like a bit of scythe fighting. Have you ever seen a focus? Which is a Polish, Hungarian weapon. Looks like an axe, but with a pick on it. They're pretty horrendous things, and you can learn to train with them. And of course, bayonets as well are all part of the historical martial arts scene, particularly bayonets on muskets. like Black Bess muskets, and obviously the French and Belgian and German derivatives of those weapons. The best weapon, of course, I think of the period, well, my favourite anyway, would be the Baker's rifle, the Icicle Baker's rifle, as used by the 95th Rifles in the Peninsular Wars and the wars with Napoleon. Didn't even know they did that. Didn't even know they did what, okay? Have axes, have bayonets, or... Oh yeah, they used everything. Yeah, basically, in the Catran Society, we have a thing called, we use different teachers to train from, and McGregor's one of them. And the McGregor method actually is a great fighting method. And it's in Chris Scott Thompson's little book here. This is my aide memoir for my training. And the McGregor method has application right across the board. I can use with sticks, with weapons, with no weapons, with shields, with cliques, with all sorts of different kit. And just using the McGregor method alone will allow you to be conversant with those sort of weapons. And literally you can take it all the way through. It's a bit like, in many respects, where the Filipinos have stolen it, I think, from Europe. I think they can say that. The Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the English, all of the European countries who invaded the Philippines left a legacy there, which has become, to a certain extent, eskrima. Although the Filipinos did have their own indigenous fighting system, I don't think it was as geared up for training large groups of people as it is now, for example. So the number system, for example, is very much a European thing. Number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and thrusts, different types of thrusts, second, prim, tierce, cart. And these are all fencing terms. So I apologise for those that aren't interested in historical fencing. So the hardest thing about obviously learning to do sword while COVID's on is obviously you haven't got a partner to train with. So all the training is essentially shadow boxing, flourishing, as we call it in sword. So I've been practicing my solo doubling drills and solo flourishing drills. And there's techniques where you enclose in command, where you grab the opponent and move in, wrapping the arm up, wrapping the head up. Because believe it or not, there's quite a lot of grappling in sword when you're closing the gap down, which you can imagine would have happened on the battlefield anyway. When you have tightly packed men fighting, you're not going to be able to swing the sword or thrust the sword as effectively as you would if you've got that distance between you. So there's techniques that we train with in the Catran Society where and these are historically accurate ideas that have been practiced, where we wrap the arm up. And I've seen it, a snake disarm in eskrima. So those of you who've done eskrima will recognise it as a snake disarm, except they don't disarm, they lock the arm up and strike with the hilt of the sword, or the pommel of the sword. Okay, which the Filipinos call the puño. Okay, I don't know whether there's a similarity in the words there or not, but they both got P, pommel and puño. Pretty horrendous part of the weapon. I mean, if you look at any basket hilt sword, you've got this is the pommel. If you were being struck in the face by that, it wouldn't be particularly nice, would it? And obviously, I think everybody had their own way of doing it, using the weapon and interacting with an opponent. I've just noticed Kay's put down that they use scythes for fighting. Yeah, because a lot of people, when they were brought into the army and were recruited, shall we say, and took the king's shilling, were farmers and worked on the land. And of course, weapons were scarce. Not everybody could have a sword, so quite a lot of the guys would have scythes. They would use scythes on the battlefield. Certainly in the wars in Scotland against the English, a lot of the guys who were recruited into the Scottish armies who fought the English would have been using farming implements. And that's something that exists in the Far East as well. So if you look at some of the weapons that are indigenous to Okinawa, which is what I was talking about right at the beginning of this conversation when we're talking about Ikigai, you had a thing called a sai, which is like a three-pronged weapon, which they believe came from the axle of a cart. You had the tonfa, which is like what we would call, what do they call them now? A single-handed baton. So you're holding it there and the weapon's there and you swing it round. That's a tonfa. That was used, it came from the grinding of barley and rice. And obviously the scythe, the kama, which is a short scythe, there's actually katas, forms for training in kama, this particular scythe. I don't have any scythes. I used to, believe it or not. I used to have a couple of them. And I even had some throwing stars as well, shuriken, which those of you who've done ninjutsu, if there's anybody out there who has done ninjutsu, would recognise. I actually made those in the shipyards when I was serving my apprenticeship. So yeah, and my boss came up and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, nothing." And he was looking at these little star-shaped things that you throw at people. So yeah, weapons everywhere, basically. Everything's a weapon if you know what you're doing with it. You know, even that, you know, even a pen. If you've got a pen in your hand, you can use it to stab. You know, if that went in your carotid artery, I think that would finish off just as much as any knife. But again, it's how you would use it. And obviously you wouldn't swing a pen. Yeah. And of course, once you've stabbed them, you can put your signature to it as well and say, "That was mine. Don't be a naughty boy." So yeah, I mean, wherever you look, you can find weapons. I mean, I'm looking on my desk at the moment, and I mean that is the foot pad of a camera. Yeah, I put it on the bottom of your camera, but actually it's got quite a nasty edge on it. You know, I mean, it's only plastic, and you can get quite a good grip on it. So everywhere you look, if you've got a mind and put a mind to it, is a weapon, particularly the swords. And even the corner of my book, stick that in your eye. Pen fighting, that would be a good course. Yeah, we could do a pen fighting course, Kay. I wonder how many people will get signing up for it. And the pen is mightier than the sword. I was going to say that, but you've said it first. But I said the sign-in thing. Sign up for the pen course. I haven't got a pen. Ah, right. Well, if you come on this course, I'll lend you mine. Bring it with you. I'll teach you how to draw blood with it. I don't mean, if it was Reading, you could draw blood. But yes, the pen is mightier than the sword in some respects, both metaphorically and actually, really. So we managed to prattle on for 36 minutes with only 4 of us on board today. I hope you're getting something out of this, guys. And I think you all know about the courses, so I'm not going to go on about them again. But seriously, if you're having trouble with your newsletters or anything, please let me know and I'll have it addressed. You shouldn't be now, it's all been sorted out. But you always get glitches with these things when you first start. What else then? What else has been occurring? All right. I've been immersing myself in that, obviously. So tube ritual. It's all about how to basically use YouTube effectively. It doesn't promise to make you millions. It just says this is how you use YouTube. How to make end cards and how to make it look attractive and what engages people and what doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's quite an honest book, and it says that, you know, you're not going to make millions out of it. You might be lucky. But if you follow the formula here and use YouTube in the manner which it was intended, it'll be good. You'll have a nice little following of people who train with you or take information off you on a regular basis. And Kay says we can do some silat tomorrow in the Thai boxing session. That'd be a good idea, actually. I think we're going to do legs, continue doing legs tomorrow anyway, kicks and knees. But we're also going to add some silla moves. So I think we'll finish off with a little bit of silla, which will be quite interesting. because some of you guys haven't done it for ages. And actually, the Silla, the forms, are things that you practice solo anyway, so you don't actually need a partner. And when I first started learning some of the Silla, I was doing it on my own anyway, because I didn't have anybody to train with. Yeah. Book, actually, there's another book I was reading a while back that somebody asked me about. That was Gut. Okay. Yes, it's about your stomach, about what goes on in your intestines, and how it's connected, very very much connected with your brain, and how you have different types of bacteria and how good they are for you, and how some of the bad ones aren't good for you. And the inside story of your body's most underrated organ. Yeah, the salat would be a good cool down tomorrow. I think you're right. So we'd leave the Ramui to one side for a change and do a little bit of Silla to finish off. And then, of course, Kay, we've got your sword session immediately after, which will all be in the garden tomorrow because it'll all be set up. That'll be amazing. So I think if there's nothing more to say now, yeah, pretty quiet one today. As I say, looking out the window, it is no surprise. 12 o'clock on a beautiful day, people are going to be either in the garden or probably in bed. So I think we'll wrap this up now, unless any of you guys have got any specific questions to ask. I think we'll wrap it up. How's that sound, guys? Pop something in the comments. I can go and get an early cup of coffee now. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for coming along. I know it's only a small group today, but we did cover a couple of things. Yeah, at least Belgium was well represented. Yeah, one person. And I think we've got Augustina, we've got Stuart, obviously we've got UK, and I think we might have Justin back. I don't know. We have 4 people. So let's have a look and see if I can work out who's on today. I understand that some people don't want to put comments, and that's cool as well. So yeah, guys, small session today, but nevertheless, thanks for coming in today. It's been 40 minutes, so we haven't done too badly. And I'll see you guys either Thursday night or Sunday for the Let That Shit Go seminar online. All right, guys. Again, thanks very much for listening to my drivel and watching me. Okay, guys, enjoy the swords.